Hey, what's up, guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. And as you can see, we're filming from the studio now. I wanted to change things up a bit, and not just have it be in my room as always. I've got a new Apple phone, right? So the camera should be a lot better now, right? And a big thing for me was being able to see myself in the camera, and having a regular or having just my previous phone, it didn't allow for that because the quality was just way too low. So I just did a webcam instead, right? But now we have this nice, beautiful quality, right? And now you guys get to see a little bit of my studio, right? Which is very, very messy. Okay, and will remain so, right? Because I want it to be a true artist space. Right here, you can see the latest piece I've been working on, right? But I just wanted to give you guys, a little bit of a change of pace. You know what I mean? And hopefully a better video as a result, right? So today, what I wanted to talk about was, what's right here, dude? Your studio, your space, right? So the artist space is a very, very important part of the artist's journey, right? It is where you will be waging war against the world, or your base of operations, right? This is where the magic happens, right? This is where the factory is, the place where you're cranking out shit, right? And it's very important, right, to an artist, because this is your spot. This is the place that you can truly call your own, right? Maybe not on like a physical level, but on a metaphysical level, right? This is where your ideas come. This is where the energy that you put into your artwork goes, okay? And where it is and how you structure it is all up to you, right? And that's part of the customization that comes with being an artist, right? So your space will not look the same as my space, right? My space, but it's integral to the artist, right? And each space is custom built, like I said, to the person, right? So maybe your studio is super neat, right? It doesn't have all this mess right here, but mine does, right? But I think my studio is relatively neat, right? There's I have some storage stuff in here. I have a lot of stuff off screen, right? But the place where I work is often very, very messy, right? And it will usually be the case with a lot of you guys, right? But we're not going to focus on cleanliness right now. What I really want to focus on is the energy of a studio space, right? And what does that mean? How does that create better art, right? And so what I want you guys to understand is the place is important, right? Not just because this is where you're gonna be working, because that's important, right? But I'm talking about the energies within it, right? So as you work more, as you create more, right, in that space, the energy will grow, right? And the easier it is, in my eyes, to enter flow state, right? So as you work more, as you put in more energy into your studio, into your work, right? You're gonna notice that you start to feel more comfortable in a space, right? Of course, when you first enter a new place, you're like, okay, well, I gotta test it out, I gotta feel it out, right? And then over some time, it's just gonna feel like second nature. You know what I mean? This is my spot. This is the place that I work in, right? And of course, as time moves on, you might change spaces, right? But I think I am pretty certain in saying that once you choose a space, it's gonna be there for a while, right? Because you don't want to be moving oh, I gotta do art here, I gotta do art here, I gotta do art there, right? Your studio is your home, right? And the home of your art. And like having it stay there for a while. It's like, it's like having a real home, right? There's the energy, there's the 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 space that creates there, right? And sometimes being outside of that area can make you feel a little bit more vulnerable. Make you feel like, oh, I don't feel comfortable creating outside of this place, right? I don't feel comfortable. Like, let's say, like you go to like a classroom environment, right? And it's like, now there's like all these, like an easel that you don't know, or something like that, right? Or like your setup is different, so it's not quite the same, right? So that's why a studio space is very, very important, because it allows you to get acclimated, comfortable, and like you start to figure out how your setup and workflow is, right? Just overall, right? And like, I can't emphasize how important that is, right? Like, one of our core tenets as humans is shelter, right? But for the artist, right, I would say that there is an extra step, right? There is the home, and then there's the place of work, right? And the place of work is, like I said, very, very important, okay? So when you guys set up your studio space, okay, I want you guys to think about first how you're gonna move in that space, right? How do you set up your artist space to fit your process, okay? So when I work, I always stand, right? I don't sit around, right? And it's a choice, because I paint, right? So you can see right here on my easel, right? That it's a standing easel, right? So you can't you can sit, right? But for me, I like to stand. So my setup is all based around me being able to walk around, right? Because I like to do distance checks, like, constantly, right? I'll lay a stroke and then just take a step back, right? But so that's the way that I have it, right? I have like this kind of like walkway with like a little carpeted floor, right? And sometimes the space that you work in may not be ideal, right? So this studio, it's very cold, right? It's out in the patio, so it's very exposed to the weather outside, right? So if it's cold, then it's gonna be freezing in here. If it's hot, then it's gonna be hot as shit in here, right? But I kind of enjoy that aspect, right? Because usually over here, it gets really warm, right? And I like to work in the heat, right? I don't work in an AC, right? I don't have any of that, right? I think I personally think that painting in the heat makes better paintings, right? Because you get more delirious, right? But that's not necessarily a good thing, right? But for your artist space, right? If you work in a certain medium, right, that also changes the space too. Because a lot of you, I know, will not have a setup like this. You'll have a setup that's more like, my computer desk, right? Or like my Wacom Cintiq tablet. I used to have those as well, right? Back when I was doing digital stuff. And that's also really good, and that's also really important. But it's also like part of your room, right? So I really wouldn't consider that like a studio, right? There's something about the separation of studio and like where your home is or your sleep is, right? That lends itself to more of a like a different space, right? Like, this space is not for rest, it's for work, right? And having that mentality can really improve your work, right? Because like once you're in the workplace, then you're like, oh, this is where I do work. This is so it creates an idea of being more proactive, right? More productive rather, right? And having a space that's separated, right, can really benefit in your production, right? So if you are someone who tends to like lose focus, right? Like this is something that I encounter as someone who did digital a lot, right? Because you're on the computer, right? well, because you're on the computer, you have access to things like YouTube, right, and music and stuff like that, and you're always like, like for me, like I would always like I'd work and then like, oh, now time to click on another haha funny YouTube, right, and that would distract me, right. It's funny because I'm saying this while you're probably watching and maybe doing some work yourself, right, but sorry, there's a fly. There's something really there's something to having a space that's completely separate from like the internet or anything like that, right? When I work, I just tend to like have music and that's it, right? And like I try not to change. I just have playlists that I just play, and I don't try to change the music all the time, right? Because it's a distraction, right? But if you guys are having issues with concentration, right, I recommend going and trying to create a little space that is separated from the outside world, right? Separated from the internet, right? Like maybe when you go in your studio, you're like, hey, you know, I put my phone on silent or some shit, right? So the messages don't come in. But it's very important to not just create the space that you're in, right? But to also like make sure that space is impermeable, right? From outside forces, right? Like you're like, you know, getting phone calls, right? Getting texts, right? You know, like looking at Instagram, getting all these messages, like you know, you want to separate yourself so that there is nothing between you and the canvas, right? Or what you're creating, right? And so like when you guys are probably wondering like, hey, how do I do that with like digital drawings or stuff like that, right? So what I recommend is making a space where, you know, you have your digital setup, right? I don't know, like you know, maybe you guys can't afford this, but like if you can, right, if you can do something like this, like have a separate setup, right, where it's only meant for art, right? And what I really recommend, right, is on that setup, right, have it so that you could easily just disconnect from the internet, right, or have like little to no apps, right, on the spot, right, and so that like there's not all these extra things to distract you, right? So you like maybe you just have like Photoshop and that's it, right? Or like I said, if you're actually doing traditional work, then this is much easier, right? You know, have a spot where you like this is for drawing, you know, and make that setup like significant, right? And put all your art supplies there, right? Don't even let yourself have like the drawing supplies in your room or something, right? You could have like for storage, right? But in your space, this is where you should be able to access everything, right? Everything you need to create. And like I said, it starts to create like a kind of like a bubble, right? A bubble where it's just you and your artwork, right? And once you have that bubble, you'll realize that, like, you know, away from the distractions, away from all the noise, you know, right? You'll be way more productive, right? And you will be in tune with the muse, right? You'll it allows you to, you know, take away from the earthly distractions and be able to reach into the divine, right? And for the divine to come into you, right? So that's why it's so important to make this kind of space, you know what I mean? To create a spot that's just for you, okay? Just for you and your art, okay? Right? The only thing that comes into this area is you, your muse, and your canvas, okay? Right? That was a weird 3. There you go. And this allows for that flow state that I was talking about, right? Of course, you could always have flow state in other places, right? But I don't mean just flow state. I mean, like, there is the flow between you, the divine, your hands, the canvas. You know what I mean? Just, you know? And, like, because there's so little distraction, because you're in that space, right? You know that you are secure in that space. There could be like freedom of interruption, which is not always the case, right? Not always the case, but there, you know, because there always might be an interruption. But you want a space where like you're like, you know, it's just you and the artwork, right? So that you can start making that great art, you know. Like at first it may not feel like, you know, this makes a huge difference, right? But as time goes, as you create more work, as you level up your artist space, right, you're gonna realize that like the way I was working before was really inefficient, right? Really created a block, right, from me to the muse, right, to what I want to make, right? But once you have created this artist space, right, once you've created this area that's all about creation, the power of it increases, right? And this increases the power of your artwork, right? And that's what we want, right? That's what we want. And to be undistracted, okay? Unbothered by the outside forces of this world, right? And in a lot of cases, right, this, like, your artist space will become like a safe space for you, right? A place where you can retreat, right? A place that is yours, right? A place where it's only your energy. You get what I'm saying, right? And the results of that is great art, okay? And it's not everything. Of course, there's, you know, all that extra stuff. But you know what? I would say that a studio space is very underrated, okay? In you know, today's very digital artistic society, we don't have like studios anymore. We just have like offices, you know. We have like a computer that we game on, a computer that we watch YouTube on, right? We have and listen to music and do all that stuff. It's all there, and we do art there, you know, right? So like there's so much distraction in that. There's so many options, and what you want to do is just eliminate those options, right? It's like Netflix, right? When you can watch anything you want, you don't want to watch anything, right? When you have so many options to do things besides art, then you might not want to do art, right? So in this space, there's only art. You want to create art here. And when you're in here, that's all you're doing, right? So it becomes instinctual to your brain, right? When you come in here, I'm going to work. I'm going to be productive, right? The ideas come out best here, right? In this space, you know? And once your mind is like reconfigured to think like that, all you have to do is just step in and then and now you're in the mode, right? And that is powerful, okay? That changes things, you know what I mean? That changes your work. It changes how you work, changes your workflow, right? Changes your speed, right? Because you're concentrating, right? And so like there's a lot of times like back when I was working, right? I actually tested myself, right? Like how distracted am I when I work, right? When I was in school, you know, I would time myself, right? When I'm productive, I press the button. When the second I watch a video, I stop the timer, right? And I would find that in a 3-hour period, I would only work like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, right? And it was like this, it's just a waste of time, and I'm distracted, and I'm not in the flow state, and I'm in and then I'm out. I'm in and then I go watch YouTube. I'm in and then like I do something else, right? But here in this studio space, right, I've been able to take the same amount of time, right, and just make it so much more meaningful, right? Because there are no distractions, you know what I mean? So there's nothing to do the go and stop. You're just going, dude. You're just going and going, right? And it almost feels like a dance, almost, you know what I mean? It almost feels like you're in your spot, and you could just dance away, right? And like there's nothing in the outside world that can bother you, right? And that really makes a difference in your work. You know what I mean? It shows that you're in a place where you're content. You're creating your work. It's just you and your work, right? And that shows in the artwork, right? It's like this person is concentrated. This person is in that divine state, right? Which is much more sustainable in your artist space, right? And outside of it, you know, there's all this, you know, right? And so I really encourage you guys, right, to create an artist space for yourself, right? Create a little zone, right? That's just for you and your art, right? No internet, nothing, dude, none of that, right? You can have the most you can have is music, okay? And music that you made on a playlist, okay? And though it may not seem like it at first, right? Your work will improve, okay? And you're gonna start loving that spot. You're gonna start loving that space, right? Because you're like, here, I can do anything. Here is the spot where I reach for the divine, okay? And I bring it down to earth so I can share it to other people, right? And I think that's the benefit, man. And I think that's it here. I think we can end the video. Please, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Check out my Princeton Patreon if you want to support the channel. Ring that bell for notification, all that bullshit. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.